I'm Cruz Devon, and welcome to This Gay Life. Today we're going to be talking about teachers who happen to be gay, and one in particular who is my guest, and I'm very proud to have him as my guest, Rodney Wilson from, what's the school district up there?
Melville School
School District up in St. Louis. And he's a history teacher. Right now I'd like to introduce him. Rodney, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 29 years old. I've been teaching high school at Melville High School for 4 years, just completed the 4th year. I'm working on a master's degree in history at UM St. Louis.
Well, that's kind of cool. So you're continuing on your education while you're educating others?
Yes.
That's great. Well, kind of the most fantastic thing about you, I think, is the fact that you are in Missouri and you are an out gay teacher. Tell us a little bit about why. I mean, because most people think it's like, geez, that'd be the one profession that I would definitely want to stay in the closet.
Mm-hmm. Historically, teachers have stayed in the closet. In fact, anytime this information got out about a teacher who was gay or lesbian, they did not show up the next day. Something happened to them, they were dismissed by the board. And that's still the case in Missouri and in many states, that gay and lesbian teachers cannot be out gay and lesbian, at least not on the job. I feel, though, that gay and lesbian people must come out for our own mental health, our own spiritual health, the well-being of our community, the well-being of gay and lesbian students. And I made a decision that I had to stop living a lie. I had to tell the truth, and the truth is I am gay. And I told my students that very truth, that I am a gay man.
How'd they take it?
They took it really well. It happened on March 22nd of this year. We were discussing the Holocaust and what the Holocaust was about. I had brought a poster in from the Holocaust Museum which detailed some of the patches that various people within the concentration camps or death camps had to wear. That included a pink triangle, which was the marker for homosexuals. I told my students, after we discussed that pink triangle, after we discussed the Holocaust and what it was about, I said to them, in an attempt to, one, to come out, but two, and more importantly, to put a human face on the persecuted groups of the Holocaust. So I said to them, if I had been in Europe during this period, I would have been forced to wear the pink triangle because I'm gay. At that moment, this was a class of juniors, American history. At that moment, there was silence, and then a young man raised his hand and he said, that was pretty brave thing to say. And then another young man raised his hand and said a similar sentence, and then went like this, and then the whole class began to clap. There might have been a few who weren't, but mainly they were clapping. Then they began to ask a few questions like, do your parents know? And I answered those that I felt were appropriate, and I answered those that I felt needed to be answered at that time. Then the bell sounded and that class period was over.
Well, the question that I think a lot of people will ask is like, well, by coming out to your students, are you teaching homosexuality? Are you teaching kids to be gay?
No, of course not. That is what some in the opposition are saying. We've had a fairly raucous board meeting since this, and at that board meeting there were about 15 individuals, 7 for me, 7 against me, and 1, maybe 2 who were on the fence. But that's what they said there. This is an unnatural lifestyle. This is a deviation. He has no right to teach homosexuality, which is, of course, absurd. If I had said, as a Jewish person, I would have been forced to wear this yellow Star of David, that would not mean I'm attempting to teach my students to be Jewish. If I had said, as a Jehovah's Witness, I would have been forced to renounce my religion, swear allegiance to Hitler's regime, or I would have been forced to wear this purple triangle, I would not be trying to teach them to be Jehovah's Witnesses. Similarly, when I said, as a gay man, when I simply put myself into a historical setting, I was not attempting to teach them to be homosexual. Though that's what the opposition is saying, that's absurd.
I agree, but what other arguments did they come up with? I mean, because I've heard that argument for so many things. I mean, even if you had said something about, well, if I was a Jew, you know, then they would possibly, especially in this area, say, well, we don't want Judaism taught in our schools. Or
I agree that Judaism should not be taught in the sense that it's being taught to persuade or to convince or to convert. Similarly, someone should not teach about homosexuality if they are attempting to persuade or convert people to become homosexual, which, as we know, is crazy. You do not become homosexual suddenly at age 15 or 16 simply because a teacher said I'm gay. So I do not believe in attempting to get my students to believe as I believe or to see things as I see them. I want all the facts about any particular issue to be brought to the table, and then the students can make up their mind about whatever. But again, I would say by simply identifying myself with a historical fact that gays were persecuted, another historical fact that I am gay, putting those two together is not in any way persuading or attempting to teach them about homosexuality.
Or to sway them into.
Or to sway them, right.
Well, what about the argument though? Like, okay, if their parents, if parents tells their kids all the time that it's not okay to be gay, that's a sinful lifestyle, and all of a sudden here comes a teacher that they respect, and he says, it's okay. It's okay for me, even if it's not okay for everybody else. But, you know, it's okay for me. I mean, that's kind of compelling, I think, as far as persuasional.
Well, I really didn't tell them it's okay for me even. I simply said that I am gay. I didn't say this is good or this is acceptable. I just said this is a fact that I am gay. I understand parents' concerns. I am very happy when parents are concerned about what their children are being taught. I'm very happy when parents call the school or call a parent to confer with that parent about their child's education. I want parents involved. But if a parent, due to whatever prejudice, be it based on religion or their sense of what is ethical or moral, if they oppose a certain person because of that person's status, I don't think they have a right to impose their ideas upon the school system. That is, in the Melville School District, when we began the voluntary transfer program 10 years ago, there were many, many, many people who did not want African Americans coming to that school, who did not want African American teachers in that school. If a particular student has an African American teacher and that student's parents are prejudiced, and that can be based on the Bible too, it has been historically based upon the Bible, I don't think those parents have a right to say this African American teacher should not be teaching my children, or this African American teacher should not be a teacher in this district, simply because of the prejudices that they happen to have. Likewise, simply because they might have prejudice against a gay or lesbian teacher, I don't think they have a right to say my student should not be in that person's class, or that person should not be teaching in this district. They have a right to prejudice within their heart, and I recognize that right, and I respect their right to be prejudiced, but I don't think they have a right to impose their prejudices upon the school system.
Have you had anybody like openly complain and say, hey, I don't want my kids in that class?
At this time, I have not heard directly from the principal or anyone as to that matter, that someone is saying, I don't want my child in Mr. Wilson's class. I'm sure there might be a few who are raising that issue with the counselors. It's my understanding if they do, they're directed to the principal, and then the principal says, if you're so serious about this, write a letter, and then we'll look into it. And I'm not aware of any letters having arrived at the principal's desk saying, I do not want my child in his class.
Well, now that you're kind of a celebrity, I mean, because basically you're like on the front of all these magazines, which I think is just wonderful, and even teacher magazines. Has that affected your ability to teach? Does it make it easier, or does it make it harder? Neither?
I don't know yet. Students come back in a week, and I'll see at that point exactly what it is like. Teacher days begin very soon, and I'll see what that's like. I know there's going to be a difference. Being the gay teacher, which is unfortunately what I will be this year, the gay teacher, will be somewhat difficult.
You're no longer the history teacher,
right.
You're the gay teacher.
The gay teacher. The gay teacher, which is not, that is burdensome. Actually, I don't want to be the gay teacher. I want to be a teacher, and I don't mind being a teacher who happens to be gay. But being the gay teacher is somewhat of a burden to me. But for
As if
one.
you were the only one.
That's right. That's right. As if I were the only one. Melville School District has 700 teachers. So stats might tell us there are 50, 60, 70 gay and lesbian teachers in that district. And I think that's part of the burden I'm feeling is, since I do not have tenure, I must get through this next year, which is my 5th year, in order to be granted tenure. If I am not granted tenure, that will say to every gay and lesbian kid in that school, we cannot tell the secret. Look what they do to people who tell the secret. They fire them. It'll say to every straight student in that school, oh, we can discriminate against these people. They've just done it in this district and it's okay. It will say to every gay and lesbian teacher, well, we can't come out quite yet. The time isn't right yet. Look what happened to this teacher. Mm-hmm. And it will say to every straight teacher or straight administrator, indeed, we can continue to discriminate against these teachers. So I do feel that I have a lot of pressure in that I've got to get through the school year successfully. I have to be granted tenure. And then hopefully the following year, I will simply be a teacher who happens to be gay and not the gay teacher.
Well, doesn't that put a lot of strain on the administration as well? I mean, because people could say, well, you just granted him that because you didn't want to have to deal with the mess, or you didn't grant him tenure because you didn't want the mess, and that kind of puts both you and the administration on a real strange line.
I think the administration is in a difficult position, which I'm not happy about. I would just assume that this had not been big news. Mm-hmm. I am amazed that this is so interesting to people because it should not be. I simply stated a fact. Right. I stated a fact as though I were saying I am 6 feet tall. Mm-hmm. There is no difference between I am 6 feet tall and I am gay, to me. Mm-hmm. So I think I would prefer that it had not been such a big deal, but administrators are in a precarious situation. What I hope they will do is the right thing, and the right thing is this. I have 4 years of exemplary teaching. Not one negative mark on my record for 4 years. Not a negative mark, only praise. I hope they will make their judgment about whether or not they're going to grant me tenure on the basis of my 4 years and this, which will be my 5th year, and on no other basis at all. Mm-hmm. That's what I hope they will do. And if they do that, if they are just and fair, I will be given tenure.
Well, I hope you get that. I mean, that would be really wonderful.
I do too.
Kind of keep you on the payroll there.
Right, which I need to be. I need to be on the payroll.
Well, but I mean, not to second guess, but I mean, would you be able to find another job?
I think it might be difficult, especially in St. Louis City or County, because this has been big news there as far as the press is concerned. So I would imagine that most of the people in the area would at least recognize maybe the name or the situation, especially educators who would be doing the hiring. So it would be difficult. If I am not renewed, if my contract is not renewed, I probably would have to leave St. Louis City or County and go to the one on the coast where, in Massachusetts, for example, or New York City or LA or San Francisco, being an out gay or lesbian teacher is more common than it is here and more acceptable than it is here. Though they have problems as well, it's more common. So I might have to relocate, but I'm hoping that does not happen.
Well, there's doesn't St. Louis have a kind of like what we had, a bias crimes ordinance type of, basically you can't discriminate against gays or something on that order?
Yes, St. Louis City, their St. Louis City policy ordinance is that you cannot discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation. Unfortunately, though I live in St. Louis City, I teach in the county. The county does not have any civil rights protection explicitly listed for sexual orientation. My school district has policy that says students will not be discriminated against on the basis of sexual orientation, but it does not include the fact that teachers will not be discriminated against. So there's no explicit rule that would protect me, but what would protect me is this. One, free speech. I could argue I had a free speech right to say I am gay. That would be one. Equal protection clause in the Constitution would be another, that I have the right to equal protection under the law, the same right that a non-lesbian or non-gay teacher would have. So I could go to those two particular areas of the Constitution and try to establish some sort of basis for protecting my job, which if they do not renew my contract, that's what I'll have to do. And even at this point, I have a memo saying that my behavior was inappropriate in my personnel file. And even I may use those two arguments in an attempt to get that memo removed, which I find absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, I heard about that in the material. How do you think your your fellow gay teachers feel? Do you think you coming out makes them feel more jittery or better, or it's like, I'm glad he did it, let's watch and see if he gets beat up now? Or what kind of a stance? Has anybody contacted you or talked to you?
I've been contacted by a lot of teachers, quite a few teachers, and I get this impression that, one, they are looking to see what happens, and that's why I must survive, because they're looking to see what happens to me. Some, I think, are a little jittery, and there was a letter to the editor in the local newspaper, the Melville community paper, that said, I understand Wilson has some support among teachers. Then the guy asked, does this mean we have a homosexual problem in the Melville School District? So he's already raising that old witch hunt scenario.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, McCarthyism.
That's right, that's right. It's just like a communist problem that McCarthy might come up with. So I think some teachers, gay and lesbian teachers in the county and city, are beginning to also feel, now they know we're out here. Before they just assumed we were in the classrooms. Now they know we're in every schoolhouse in this country. And the Gays in the Classroom debate in St. Louis has started as a result of this. So there might be a little bit of jitteriness too, fearing that people might go on a real witch hunt and try to get them all out. But we've started in St. Louis a gay, lesbian, and straight teachers network. We had 22 people at our last meeting. We're going to march in the Pride Parade October 2nd under the GLSEN, Gay, Lesbian, Straight Teacher Network banner. So there is some progress that's being made in St. Louis City, some of it as a result of what's happened over the past few months.
Overall, you said there were 7 teachers for and like 7 teachers against in a very raucous meeting.
Parents, actually.
It was it? Oh, okay. When you go out to the store or something, people don't throw tomatoes at you or anything? No. I've been recognized in a few places by a few individuals who've come up and said, oh, I saw you in this or on that, and I appreciate it. But I've not had anything like that. I have had a negative phone call that began with, is this Rodney Wilson the faggot, and then went down from there. I had a negative letter Classy
in which,
people.
Right, a letter in which they quoted a lot of the scripture in condemning me and condemning what I've done. And then at the board meeting, there were people there. One woman I remember in particular, I wasn't there, but I saw it on the news coverage. She held up the magazine or the paper you just held up, and she shook that at the audience with my face on the cover and said, go home and read 1 Corinthians. So I have experienced some negative, but overall, and this is really the message, overall, this has been overwhelmingly positive. I don't regret it for 1 minute. This has been a good thing. This has been the right thing to do. The support from the students has been overwhelmingly phenomenal, though a little bit of negative. Teachers have been neutral to positive in most cases. Parents have been neutral, some negative, some positive. It's been a good experience, and I hope that we gay and lesbian teachers can begin to do this more and more and more and more, especially just for the sake of the gay and lesbian teens who often feel so cut off and who are without role models. We need to provide them openly gay role models, just as straight kids have openly straight role models.
I think that's real important, considering that the suicide rate is much higher among homosexual and lesbian teenagers. It seems kind of funny being a history teacher. You're actually out there making history. I'm sure your life has changed, but I mean, when you're like directioning your life now, where do you see yourself going?
Hopefully for 2 more years teaching in that district, at least 2 more. I want to go on my own terms, 3, 5, 10 years from now. I want to leave on my own terms. I want to continue to be a good teacher, a good history teacher, teach my students to love history, working with the gay and lesbian and straight teacher group, attempting to bring about a world in which all God's kids, even God's gay kids, have equality and have a life that is lived as openly and as freely and as above board as all of God's straight kids.
Do you see yourself as a mentor for other, not just other teachers, but other people in their workplaces, standing up and saying, yes, I'm gay, it's not that big of a deal?
I hope. I hope. Harvey Milk, assassinated in '78. Before that, he knew people were after him. And he said, someone asked him about that, and he said, if a bullet should enter my brain, let that bullet destroy every closet door. And I've always remembered that. And I do think we have to unlock the closets, open them, take the doors off their hinges, throw them away, and live openly and freely. Each person must do that on her or his time scale, of course. No one can say when someone else should come out. That should be a personal decision. But I hope we are all moving and progressing toward a day in which we're completely liberated from the closet. And so if I can help people by this story, saying this has been very positive, if I can help them make another step toward the closet door that they want to open and walk out of, that's great.
Well, a lot of people say, well, I couldn't do that because of one reason or the next. I'm not that brave. Not to put you down or anything, but you're not that extraordinary per se. What has made your circumstance extraordinary is, well, media for one. Everybody wants to know your story, and two, because right now it's unheard of. Maybe 10 years down the road, it's like, yeah, so they came out. Oh, what? So what? If you're looking at yourself as a role model and stuff, are there other things that you would like to do? I mean, right now. I mean, obviously, just being a teacher is one way, because basically you're there and your kids are seeing you, and they're beginning to understand that you don't have polka dots or horns growing out of your head. And that in one way is a good way. What are some other ways you think you'd like?
Well, I will comment on what you said about the fact that I'm not extraordinary. Absolutely true. 5 years ago, I was so embedded in the closet, no one knew my story. No one. If I had died at that time period, no one would have known, because I did not tell anyone. I did not write it down until age 24 and 25. I did not tell my parents the truth until May of '91, when I was 26 years old. So there are a lot of people who are in the closet, and they don't at all see the possibility of being open. And I did not 5 years ago either. So I think that we can make some progress toward that particular step. And I guess that would be the role model. You asked about the role model, or what I might want to play. That would be the biggest thing. Because I think once we all come out, they are going to have to do one of two things. Take us all and line us up against a wall and shoot us, which they will not do. America will not do that. The religious right will not do that. The other option is grant us full civil rights under the law. And that's what America will do. 15 years from now, 20 years from now, we will look back and we'll say, can you believe it was a big deal when that teacher came out? That's what we'll say. Can you believe it? Just like right now we look back to 1962, when James Meredith was attempting to integrate Ole Miss. We all know what the white folks did. 1957 at Little Rock, Arkansas, when the Little Rock Nine attempted to integrate 2,000 students, all white. We know what the white folks did. And we look back in horror at what happened. Similarly, 20 years from now, 25 years from now, we'll look back and we'll say, can you believe that was a big deal? Can you believe teachers live their entire careers in a closet? Because freedom will come to us just as surely as freedom, in some measure, has come to African Americans.
Do you ever have students come up and say, hey, I'm gay? And it's like, do they ever seek you out for particular counseling? Or?
Before this happened, I ran across 3 or 4 students at various functions in the community, like a parade or at the MCC or wherever. And I was aware that they were gay. They knew that I was gay, and we would talk occasionally at school in the hall, or they might come by after school, and we would talk a little bit about what was going on in their lives. Since this happened, no student has come to me and come out. But I did see a change. I had some students that I thought maybe this student is gay or lesbian. Just crossed my mind about particular students in a class. And I did notice after this happened on March 22nd, they became more open. They raised their hand more often. They seemed to be more interested and energized about the class. And I think that was partly because they saw a gay teacher who said, I'm gay, and was not lynched the next morning. they saw that that was a possibility. So I did see a change in some of the students that I thought might be gay or lesbian students and might be struggling with that particular issue.
We've got a few minutes left here. For any of our teachers that are gay and or lesbian, do you have any suggestions?
Anyone who's thinking about coming out should think about a few things. One, you might want you want to be a member of the National Education Association or some other association. NEA, and I brought the resolution, NEA has steadfastly opposed discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation for 2 decades. They are providing me with free legal counsel right now. The Missouri NEA is. So you need some sort of protection as far as a professional union or association goes. 2, you need to have had a pretty good record, because if they can find something with which to hang you, they might do it. So you need to have had a good record and good rapport with your fellow teachers and fellow students. But if these things are in order, I think there's a possibility of safely coming out. And something else you might want to do, before I came out, I had personally come out to about a quarter of the faculty. It's 110 teachers. I'd told maybe 30 teachers on a one-to-one basis. Teachers I knew who would be supportive, and indeed they were and they are. So I knew that there was already a support mechanism for me if something catastrophic were to happen as a result of telling the truth. So there are some steps that one must take in order to be prepared. You just don't walk into a class and say, I'm gay. You don't do it. I thought about doing this for 3 years, and finally the right time came this past March. But you have to wait on the right time, and in the meantime you have to prepare for that time.
That's very, very interesting. As far as like information of organizations and stuff like that that help teachers, can you name off a few of them just real quickly? And if anybody would like the information on that or the telephone numbers to get a hold of them, they can call us. We have the telephone number that will be coming up here soon, and we'll relay that to you if you're interested. What are some of the organizations?
Well, I know the NEA has a gay and lesbian caucus. There's the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Teachers Network out of Boston. Karen Harbeck wrote a book called Coming Out of the Classroom Closet, Gay and Lesbian Students, Teachers, and Curricula, which can be bought at many bookstores. That would be a very good book to read.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being my guest.
You're welcome.
And join us again on the next This Gay Life. Remember, if you want some information about the teachers, the gay teachers or gay and lesbian teachers associations, or any help that you might be able to get, give us a call. Thanks for joining us. I'm Cruz Devon.